Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video by yours truly. Prydwen hasn't updated their tier list since the Sparkle release, and I'm barely getting around to sharing my thoughts on it. Last time we did it, we went over every single character. We won't be doing that this time because, well, if they're in the same spot, I'm just gonna sound like a broken record. However, if there's been any like changes in the rankings of certain units, or my stance has changed on them since Sparkle's influence, I will comment on those characters. But for the most part, if you want to hear my thoughts and perspective on certain units, you can just go back and watch the previous tier list because they're still in the same spot. I also want to mention that I do know that there's a difference between MOC tier list and pure fiction. To the geniuses who thought they could speak on my behalf on what my interpretation of the tier list was on the previous video. Speaking of which, we'll also touch up on the pure fiction tier list. I do want to say though, I haven't done the latest. There's a completely new format, and I don't think they've taken into consideration the rankings with the new format. This is the format before it. So I'm gonna go off of that same concept. We'll make a updated pure fiction thoughts. If y'all want to hear that, I have no problem. I still haven't done it myself though, so we got to get a hands-on experience on that. Then we'll come back and elaborate on what I think. So I think I've touched up on pretty much, the overview of what we're gonna do. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, this time I actually do want to read kind of the disclaimer and the overview so everyone is on the same page with the tier list and how they do it. This is also a service to Prydwen so that their hard work and the time they pour into this isn't just thrown in the trash can. It's important to understand the context. Please keep in mind that Honkai Star Rail is a game where team building matters most. And while our tier list takes the optimal setup into account, which is optimal equals favorite, the favorite setup. The majority of people like that build. A lot of characters can work and do well, even those ranked lower, when you invest into them. Also, for story or lower difficulties of Simulated Universe, you don't need to worry about ratings and tiers. You can safely clear that content even with free-to-play characters as long as you build your team correctly. So this does not include Simulated Universe, okay? These tier lists are rate characters based on their average performance in both Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction, regardless of turbulence, whimsicality, and cacophony. Characters rated higher will perform well without the need to rely on these and will only benefit from receiving them. As new mechanics, characters, and challenges are introduced, each tier will be updated. So to sum that up for you guys who are like just not into all the big words, whimsicality and cacophony and turbulence, it pretty much all means that like they're not going to take into consideration the highest mid-max build, the lowest mid-max build. They're gonna find an average relatable build that most people can build upon and use that character with, which actually is how I do my own content. When I try to provide builds and scenarios to you guys, I'm generally trying to stay in the middle because the middle is going to be the most relatable to the majority of people watching content. Now, if I do a zero cycle with a build that is relatable, that is huge because it shows that the majority of people can also do that zero cycle, granted that they follow the same line of strategy. So I love that. That's cool. It's good to take into consideration because there are the head asses that are going to be like, well, if you put 300% crit damage on Jing Yuan, then he's going to kill everything in the game too. It's like, bro, okay, but the average person is not going to have 300% crit damage on Jing Yuan. So I love that. That's huge. Memory of Chaos. How the character performs in the Memory of Chaos. Blast and single target damage are important here, while AoE has niche uses against some bosses. Fair game. They're absolutely right. And what they're trying to say there is like Argenti, for an example, is going to be the best unit in the entirety of the game in the AoE scenarios. But if it's two bosses, his value goes down. And so they're going to take in consideration that variable in nuance. Pure Fiction. How the character performs in the Pure Fiction. AoE is king here, followed by Blast, while single target damage is garbage. True. Absolutely. Now, the damage dealer role. Characters that focus on dealing damage is self-explanatory. I'm not going to read the rest of that. Characters that excel under specific circumstances is the specialist, carrying a unique role that often requires a different and divergent playstyle. For example, breakers can deal monstrous burst damage or crippling crowd control, and synergists introduce entirely new archetypes. So this one is going to be a character that specializes in a specific niche and does it incredibly well. Amplifier. Characters that do not focus on dealing damage, but instead they amplify the damage of other teammates dealt by granting allies buffs or debuffing enemies, pretty much harmony units and nihility units. Sustain. Characters who are capable of keeping the team alive with their abilities. But I will say that can't be the only thing of a sustainer. It should also be what else can they do on top of sustain. Which a prime example of that would be somebody like Fu Xuan or Scooby-Doo, who can battery your team, where Fu Xuan can give you crit chance. or crit damage if you have E1. So down arrow means they've been nerfed, up arrow means they've been buffed, new means a character that's been recently added to the tier list because they just dropped. All right, and then the dice means an RNG machine, means their performance isn't heavily influenced by the Gamba, aka QQ. Breaker, that's the shield, and then finally this little symbol right here is going to be Synergist. Character whose power drastically increases when one or more specific characters accompanies them on their team. So this was a misunderstanding on one of my last video when people didn't even really know what the hell it means. If another character is accompanying this character and they have this symbol next to them, that means their performance goes up massively. These characters are often the focal point of the composition they are a part of and open up a new archetype of gameplay. All right, so now that we understand that, the next thing I want you guys to understand is show 4-star characters at Eidolon 6, E0 otherwise. So I'm showing characters that are 4 stars at Eidolon 6. I'm also going to be showing characters that are E0 as a 5-star character, not E1, E0. So that's important to take into consideration too. Now we can go ahead and look at this. With that being said, this looks the same, but I still want to touch up on it as the last tier list. I think Scooby-Doo should be right here next to Fu Xuan. Now that I see that they've placed 2 units on the rows, that's now telling me that they're not doing this rule that says only 1 unit can be on top. With that in mind, there's no way in hell Scooby-Doo shouldn't be right next to Fu Xuan, because Scooby-Doo outperforms Fu Xuan on dot compositions, such as like Kafka, Black Swan. Also on units who have enough crit rate already, who don't need the 10% crit chance that Fu Xuan gives. So Jing Liu, Scooby-Doo's gonna outperform her. She's a meta unit, that's pretty important. Imbiber Lune, it's gonna be an iffy, depending on how much crit chance he actually has. He might need the Fu Xuan with the crit damage. So they're probably like a split 1-to-1, but one could make the argument that Imbiber Lune may need Scooby-Doo's buff, right? So she should be right next to Fu Xuan, honestly. Fu Xuan's comfort is absolutely God tier, but that shouldn't be the reason why she's in front of Scooby-Doo. I'm just gonna go ahead. Lorcha is fine as the S tier. He's always gonna be a phenomenal, incredibly comfort sustainer. I already touched up on these units. You can go back and watch the previous tier list if you want to hear my thoughts on those. Moving on to this one right here, let's get right into the juice of it. I don't think Sparkle is as valuable as Ron May, but I can understand the gesture here. I can understand the train of thought here. Let's just go ahead and start off here first. Sparkle is the reason why Imbiber Lune is now back on top. She's the reason single-handedly why he's S+ tier again and in front of Jing Liu, even though let's go ahead and establish that. This tier list is not meticulously ranked in order based off of performance. It's like A through B. In fact, Imbiber Lune, Jing Liu, Hij. Yeah, true. Okay, cool. So, but I will say, I actually do think he is in front of Jing Liu. She's also the reason why Jing Yuan is now an S tier unit, and she also makes all these units that are in the meta, she can make them all better. So I understand why, because she actually brings out their performance and takes it to the next level, which is very deserving of the S+ tier. However, Ruan Mei can do the exact same thing. She doesn't have to be E1. Ruan Mei is good because of the all-type res pin paired with the 70% damage bonus, paired with her skill point friendliness, paired with her ability to have 1-turn ultimate, paired with her ability to weakness break efficiency, increase the whole team, delay everybody, prevent her from moving. The bitch does everything. It's not, E1 is a little like icing on the cake of her value. For that matter, this has nothing to do with even glazing her. It's just absolute fucking facts. If you go and look at the statistics of how many people use her, everyone uses her. And unless you don't have May. Imagine being maidenless. Bro, you need to be in Elden Ring Part 2 if you're maidenless. Now, going back to this, I think there should be another spot, just one spot. Only one person can go up to this one spot, and this one spot is labeled God tier. I think Ruan Mei should have that spot because nobody in the game is on her level. That's how strong she is from where I stand. I don't think Sparkle is on her level, but Sparkle's the closest thing to her level. That said, I would put her up here so she can be by herself. I would bump up Bronya and Ting Yun and put them next to Sparkle, and I would order it in the way of Sparkle, Ting Yun, Bronya. Nah, honestly, you could do Sparkle, Bronya, Ting Yun. It's up to you. I personally think Ting Yun is the most god tier like unit ever. She will never not be used outside of Acheron. But basically, I think these 3 units all should be in the S+ tier, and then Silverwolf and Pella should be in the S tier. Silverwolf has definitely gotten better with not only Sparkle, but also with Ruan Mei. So I think Silverwolf, Crit Wolf, that is, I want to establish this too. Crit Wolf is now better than Break Feck Wolf. because of Sparkle and Ruan Mei. If you put Sparkle and Ruan Mei on the same team with a Silver Wolf, because she gets the indirect effortless buffs that they provide, she can now pop off. If you have like signature light cone, she can pop off even more. Crit Wolf is officially now have the infrastructure to do her thing, especially when new sets around the corner come out. She's going to be better as well. This, y'all know me, I've always been telling y'all that Crit Wolf is ass cheeks, but slowly over time, just like Jing Yuan, she's slowly been getting the tools and things needed for her to actually be a true good crit damage person while still fulfilling her debuff nihility role needs. With that being said, I think her and Pella can be in the S tier together. The S plus tier should be Branya, Ting Yun, and and Sparkle. I think those three all belong on the S plus tier mark, and I think Ruan Mei should have her own role up here. There should be just one unit in the entirety of the game that's up here, and then you know, as more broken units come out, you can replace them. But Ron is just, he's God tier, bro. All right, going down here. Yeah, I don't think Yukong is C tier. I think that's absolute like slander at this point. Like C tier? Nah. C tier. I think all three of these units have been completely overshadowed by Ruan Mei and Sparkle. But that doesn't mean that she's a C tier unit. They're still supportive units that, because you have to take into consideration, if nobody doesn't have Ruan Mei or Sparkle, these are the only units they do have, and they're not B tier. Fuck, that's actually, it's always hard. But I'll tell you one, E6, E6, absolutely, they're all A tier. They're all A tier, E6. E0 to E5, fine, make your argument. But E6, I think they all belong in the A tier because they're harmony units that are absolutely valuable, especially if you don't own these units. So yeah, that's pretty much where I would stand with that. Over here, this is the exact same as it was last time. I still have the same exact perspective. Nobody's going to convince me otherwise. Kafka can't be in the S plus tier without Black Swan, period. She just can't. Her value drops off immensely without Black Swan. I've played with this composition. I've played with Kafka since her release. I understand them. I've zero cycled with them. I know this comp so well. I know it like the back of my hand. Her value goes down 2 tiers if you take away Black Swan. Not 1 tier, 2 tiers. So I think Black Swan and her should still be up there in tandem. You can disagree with that. That's fine. But based off my own personal experience, Kafka's in the A tier without Black Swan. Therefore, Black Swan and her should both be up here. Topaz, yeah, she's an S tier unit that is just so universally good. I stand on that. Shu Yi, I need to do more testing. But as of now, the Sparkle Shu Yi combo wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. But I also, the current MOC format hasn't allowed me to really get a good grasp on her. The reality of the situation with Shu Yi is her kit makes you believe she can like perform in situations where the elemental advantage is not quantum, but in practice, she pretty much is only good against scenarios where everyone's weak to quantum, which is unfortunate because her ult ignores their toughness, which means you can just chunk it at somebody who's not weak to quantum and it's still going to obliterate their shield. But when you run her in scenarios where nobody's weak to quantum, you come to find out that she needs them to be weak to quantum. I don't know what else to tell you. She's incredibly mid if they're not weak to quantum. So I haven't had the chance to test that scenario out yet. When I do, I might reassess it. But even then, that alone means that A tier is probably appropriate. And she's a 4-star, so it's fair. These two, yep, everything's fine. Well, still being in the B tier is still, I'm telling you, bro, I'm about to Undertaker choke slam the shit out of, who at Prydwen doing this shit? Who at, huh? You want some of this smoke, bro? Hey, listen here, little bro. Don't be doing my boy Welt like that, dog. Nah, seriously. Welt is not a B tier unit. It's criminal because Welt can actually DPS, he can sustain, and he can be a nihility role unit that's putting defensive shred on them while also delaying the enemy and letting your team pop off. He slows them like drastically so they can't even go. That's another thing that's slept on. Welt can enable your team to pop off before the enemy does because of his technique going into the next cycle. He's going to be a synergy with Acheron, I guarantee it. So it's like A tier is the bare minimum Welt should be in. I'm not going to fight you on and say he deserves to be an S tier, but B is just absolute blasphemy in my personal opinion. You still sleeping on Su Shang. God, I gotta make a Su Shang video. C tier is absolutely, that is abysmal. Then again, you know what? If Sparkle doesn't work with Su Shang, here's why I'll shut up. if Su Shang does her skill and then ult and then she goes again and Sparkle's buff goes away, then I 100% understand why they downgraded her. I haven't tested that out yet though, but she is technically getting an additional turn, so it might kill Sparkle's buff. And if it does, then I absolutely understand why they put her down. That would make sense. It would. It actually would, because that would imply that Sparkle buffed everyone, but she didn't buff Su Shang, which means by default Su Shang goes down a tier. That makes sense. I get it. Now moving over here. Yes, I think Jing Liu is still God tier to the point where she can't drop down below S+ tier. There's just no way. You would have to have a whole wave of units outperforming her, not a whole wave, but another DPS outperforming her to where she's forcibly going down to the S tier. She's still S+, but Imbibe de Lune going 3 times and he's built averaged. Yeah, bro, he's the new strongest DPS in the game. I don't know what else to tell y'all. Him with a Sparkle is just insane. Like, his damage makes 0 sense. If you don't believe me, just go watch my 0 cycle on my latest Sparkle video and you'll see what I mean, because my Imbibe de Lune is not even cracked. He's E0. He doesn't even have a signature light cone, not his at least. So yeah, ratio, yeah, S tier. I agree with everything here now. I do. I agree with everything here. I will say with enough Gamba, you could see QQ actually performing at an S+ tier level. But if you watch Pokey's Twitter, he has a footage where QQ heard the shit he was talking and brothers spent 10 skill points without triggering her enhanced auto attack. So there's the Gamba that you have to deal with on that behalf. But if you Gamba appropriately, she can 0 cycle just the way these units can 0 cycle. And that's worth taking into consideration. Ratio, the reason he's not S+ tier is because Ratio's damage is single target hindered. He's hindered by the hunt path. There's scenarios where I obliterate 2 elites, but I cost myself a cycle because there's a little trash mob on the side still alive. In the dynamic of Ratio, generally speaking, you're gonna have him in a hyper buff composition with the exception of Topaz. So yeah, I think he's an S+ here. Jing Yuan, the buff that Jing Yuan received was nothing short of extraordinary with Sparkle. I think she literally 2x'd the man's damage. I'm not kidding. I think she 2x'd him, because I used to do Lightning Lord damage of like 200,000. 230,000. Bro hit for 470,000 damage, my Jing Yuan, with Sparkle on the team. Now again, this was a triple buff scenario, but you know, we're coming into the point where you can technically run some triple buff scenarios, but it's still kind of a gray area. With that being said though, Jing Yuan absolutely got buffed massively, which is huge. Now moving on down here, I still think they're butchering Blade. Blade's not an A tier DPS. And here's the thing with Blade, man, it's very simple. If you know what the hell you're doing with your blade can go 3 to 4 times, not twice, right? And I get it. They did say that this is the average build. Even again, average blade build is going 3 to 4 times. That's just what it is. You're putting him with a Bronya and he's going 3 to 4 times. This is why I said he should have the synergist symbol with a Bronya being the synergist person he goes with. But like with a blade and a Bronya optimized, and now actually my fault, Sparkle, from my testing, to my surprise, is better for Blade than Bronya is. She is better for Blade than Bronya is because the crit damage lasts longer on his counterattacks. Or like, basically, he can have a counterattack occur when it's not his turn, whereas if you have Bronya on the team, it's not going to apply that. Sparkle pretty much can do what Bronya does, but her buffs are stronger. So Blade with Sparkle could be bumped up to the S tier. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm always going to push for him. I am a Blade main, so maybe I'm to a degree biased. I'll take the L there, but I don't think he belongs in A. I think he belongs in S, my personal opinion. Now, Argenti, after Sparkle's release, I feel like he's just gotten stronger with a Sparkle. I don't own him. I wish I did. But I think he also belongs in the S tier. Now, I heard people make this argument last time, like, we can't have everybody in the S tier. It's not a matter of that, bro. All these units, when you have them invested in averagely, all pretty much perform the same, bro. They all perform in the same manner. And I guarantee you, if you were to look at the math on each unit performing on average, yeah, they're all in the same ballpark of damage. So I do agree that all 6 of these units are S tier units. They're not on the level of these 2, but they are on the level of S tier units. So that's my personal opinion. Now, when it comes to Clara, I have her at E3, but I've spent no time with her. It's just one of those where I have no resources available every time I get around to saying I'm going to play Clara. But I feel like Clara with Sparkle and her counter occurring could probably, I don't know. I think she's proper A tier. I do. I think, which A tier is not bad, but yeah, I think she's proper. Himiko, I stand by what I said. Himiko with a Topaz is S tier over here. She should be in specialist next to Topaz. Nothing has changed. I already went over it. I'm not going to go over it again. Yeah, sure, fair. And this no, this is the funniest shit to me, dog. Oh my god, bro. Like, guys, I don't think you understand the humor and pettiness of whoever's doing this at Prydwen is absolutely hilarious. For the most part, I agree. I changed my stance. I already went on everybody else down here. I'm not going over that again. We talked about it in the last tier list update. So I'm just going to touch up on pure fiction. Based off what I'm looking at in pure fiction, I think Lorcha should actually be S+ tier and Scooby-Doo should be S tier. Because in pure fiction, you're not really trying to sustain. You're just trying to do as much cycle damage as possible. Both of these two can be built to crit and deal damage, and their ults can actually clear out the trash mobs. So I think Lorcha and Fu Xuan should be S+ and Scooby-Doo should be down here. I'm not going to discredit the fact that Scooby-Doo can battery your team, but I don't think she's providing the same level of value that she provides in MOC in pure fiction. Lorcha is better than her because his ult actually deals damage when it crits. Crit Lorcha is absolutely a thing in pure fiction that can get rid of all the smaller mobs. Same thing with Fu Xuan. So yeah, that's my take on that. Yeah, all that seems fair. March as a C tier, I feel like March's ult should put her in front of these units. March's ult freezing units and probably potentially doing them damage by default should probably put her in front of these units. They're ranking them based off sustain, but sustain is a different role in pure fiction. So that's a little weird for me. Ranmei is still Ranmei. Bronya and yeah, all the supportive units can basically just make your AoE stronger. So I absolutely agree with pretty much the most of this. Ranmei does it the best because she just does it passively. So yeah, I agree with this for sure. Sparkle making you never run out of skill points actually leads me to believe that Sparkle should be S+ tier. Yeah, because you're always going to have your skill points available, which means you probably can build even more AoE and not worry about running out of skill points. She also can just do the same thing as Ranmei, where she just buffs the other DPS up and allows them to pop off. I think Sparkle should be S+ tier. I do. Pella should be S tier, because Pella's ult is the same concept as Lorcha and Fu Xuan's ult. Pella's ult, when you build her for crit, actually deals good damage to get rid of the trash mobs. Fair right here, fair right here, fair right here. Yeah, all three of these are incredibly fair. Black Swan, yep, S+ tier, disgusting dot damage, obliterating the trash mobs. Yeah, disgusting damage. Pair with Kafka, beautiful. I fully autoed the entirety of the pure fiction with these two characters. I fully autoed everything with these two characters. So it's the same concept as I told y'all on MOC though. I think Kafka should be right next to Black Swan. I don't get the split here. It's weird. Just put them both in S+ tier. What the fuck? Doesn't make much sense, man. Welt in B tier is ridiculous because Welt delays every single cycle with his technique. Same concept as Lorcha, Fu Xuan, and Pella. If you build him for crit, his ult hits every unit and clears the trash mobs while also delaying. B tier, like, bro, who the fuck is a Welt hater at Prydwen? Bro, what is your issue with my guy? He's literally the most based and greatest design character. Well, Sparkle might have taken that belt now, but still. These two are the best design characters in all of Honkai, bro. What is this? What is this Welt slander, bro? The disrespect. All right, moving on. Yeah, everything else seems fair. Yeah, these are horrible units and yeah, I completely agree. Horrible units in pure fiction. Now, I'll be honest. Nah, I think Himiko's S+. I ain't gonna cap. Himiko is every bit as good as a Pella. I mean, as a Herta. In fact, you can put the synergist symbol next to these two for ice fire situations, and they just obliterate everything. So yeah, I ain't gonna cap. I think she belongs in the S+ tier. Jing Yuan, S tier, fair. Especially now that Sparkle can just buff the hell out of him, fair. Blade, I think he belongs in the S tier. No, he doesn't. No, because he does destruction damage and you have to rely on his follow-up attack. I'll say this, a E6 Blade who triggers follow-up attack 4 times. I'd like to see him going pure fiction with just one other character and just aggro follow-up attack. I feel like that'd be fun. But yeah, A tier Blade is actually pretty fair. I will say though, Blade is better than Jing Liu in pure fiction. That's why I don't like it. I think Blade's better than every single one of these units. Sela cucks are gonna try to convince you Sela could be higher. She re-triggers her resurgence, man. She just auto attacks everything. Nah, bro, stay in the back with Amber, bro. Just like Sela. Serval, the slanderous, S tier. What the bro? Serval literally, what? She was a part of the fully auto that I did. I did Black Swan, Kafka, and Serval in fully autoed pure fiction. So I mean, even then, take them out. Serval's AoE is beautiful. Invest in her. I think she's an S tier AoEer. She's a pure fiction character. Like, bro, what? QQ should be, yeah, I guess that's fair. And yeah, that's fair. All right. That's pretty much everything. Those are my new thoughts on the updated Prydwen tier list. You guys let me know, comment down below, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side.